guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Andri and today is just another day in the life. I'm bringing you another video for our series that uploads every Tuesday and it's called Animal Topic of the Day. Well, Tuesday's Animal Topic of the Day. So if you guys have any topics you would like me to cover, it can be anything animal related or sugar gliders or not, just put it down below in the comments section and I'll be sure to put it in my notes for an upcoming video. So without further ado, go ahead and grab your beverage of choice, grab a furry friend, and get in a comfortable spot because as you know, or as you don't know, these videos can go pretty long. So that brings us to the topic of the day, which is buyer beware. And basically I'm going to be covering what you should know about adopting a sugar glider and what certain red flags you should be wary of. Because a lot of people, when they go and they do their research about sugar gliders and they really want one as a pet, they don't always know what to look for. And sometimes because of that, they fall into scams where people will take your money and you won't get the glider in the end. So I'm going to give you some things to look for, and there are certain exceptions with some of these things, but at least this will give you a good general idea on what you should stay away from. So the first step whenever you are considering adopting a sugar glider is that you always want to research the breeder. Never ever buy a sugar glider from a breeder that you do not know or you don't research. So you can either do this by going on Google. A lot of times when you Google a breeder, it will pop up in certain forums, that breeder's name, so you can check on the forums and see what people's experiences have been with that breeder. You can also ask on Facebook. A lot of times in the sugar glider groups on Facebook, they actually somebody in that group will have experience with certain breeders, and they'll be able to tell you what breeders are no good and which ones are really good and all of that fun stuff. And you can also check on gliderblacklist.com. Again, that's gliderblacklist.com. That basically has all of the breeders that are not recommended for whatever reason. They will be blacklisted on that website. And if you go on Facebook, you can search for the group called Beware Sugar Glider Vendor and Breeder Info, and you can find a lot of good info on that in that group as well regarding sugar glider breeders and what breeders people don't recommend or what breeders people had good experiences with. Another thing I would be very wary about is you want to try not to get your glider off of Craigslist or Hoobly, because those are a lot of scams. So, I mean, sometimes you do a favor to the sugar glider, you can get them off of Craigslist, and sometimes it's not the worst experience. You actually will get a new family member and everything will go smoothly. But there are certain things that you should be careful of because there's also a lot of scams out there to where they just want to take your money. So something that you should be very careful is that some offer to ship the gliders to you for only the price of shipping or delivered directly to your home. For those of you guys that do not know, that's not how sugar glider shipping works. Your sugar gliders do not get shipped straight to your door like I know some fish are shipped that way and some other animals, but sugar gliders cannot be shipped that way. So sugar gliders actually have to be shipped through an airline, and many times they have to be picked up at an actual airport. So if anybody claims that a sugar glider can be shipped straight to your door, stay away from that because it's probably a scam. Another thing is that shipping can be very expensive, and gliders in general are very expensive. So if anyone asks you for the money up front in total before even seeing the sugar glider or anything like that, you also want to stay away from them. And if someone just asks for the cost of shipping but is willing to give you a free glider, that's most likely a scam and they're just going to take your money and you're not going to get anything in return. Some breeders do require deposits or even payment plans. However, don't do this unless you know the breeder very well or you get to see the gliders first. So basically you want to make sure they have no problems showing you the glider before you get into a payment agreement or anything like that. And me as a breeder personally, I don't have an issue with people coming to play with my gliders if they're truly interested. Any breeder should be willing to do that, otherwise they're probably hiding something. Things you want to you want to avoid are mill breeders and brokers. An example that is extremely popular is pocket pets. Pocket pets food is crap. You probably have heard me talk about that in a previous video on diets. But anything pocket pets related pretty much is crap, except for very few items. And themselves as a breeders, they're crap. They're a mill breeder. And anybody, you want to avoid anybody that promotes heat rocks. The reason for that is that anybody that promotes a heat rock for a sugar glider is most likely pulling the babies away prematurely from the parents, so that joey is not old enough really to be fully weaned and to regulate their own body temperature. So if they say, oh, you have to get a heat rock for them to maintain their temperature, then stay away from there, because most likely the sugar glider is extremely young, not even ready to go to a new home, and they also oftentimes are malnourished, or they have critical illnesses, and they're just very sickly because they did not get the full benefit of staying with their parents long enough. And these gliders, I'm not talking about gliders to where it would have been weaned in a day. These are gliders that they're taking like weeks before they're supposed to be ready to go to a new home. You also want to avoid anybody that does not recommend a staple diet. A staple diet is essential to a glider's health, and you can find all of these staple diets on sugarglider.info. So I would definitely not recommend anybody that says pellets and apples are fine. That's a lie, because that does not meet all the nutritional needs of a sugar glider. They need many times hand-mixed diets, and that's the only way that they're going to get the full amount of nutrition that they need to thrive. They might survive on pellets and apples, but not for very long, and they're going to get sick very easily, just like we get sick eventually from eating too much junk food. It's pretty much the same concept. You also want to avoid anyone that recommends a small bird cage, because sugar gliders are arboreal animals, which means they like to glide from tree branch to tree branch. So really, it's not essential that you have a super wide cage, but you do want a tall cage, and really the taller the better. So the minimum size, at very, very minimum, should be 2 by 2 by 3 feet. And that's even like kind of a travel cage to me. So really the bigger the better with sugar gliders. Or the minimum should really be 3 by 3 feet, so 9 square feet of space. So you just want to make sure you have a decent sized cage for them. Otherwise you won't have a lot of room to put toys in there for enrichment or anything, and the sugar gliders are going to become depressed because they don't have enough room to do what they naturally need to do to stay healthy and to stay fit. You also want to avoid someone who uses the selling point that sugar gliders are easy and cost next to nothing. Sugar gliders, or anybody that uses the selling point of they need very little care I can't even get past those people. Like, I don't know where their mind is. Sugar gliders, I mean, some people might say they're easy, and they can be easy in some cases, but you might get a sugar glider that needs more attention, more socializing. Socializing alone can take up most of your time because you need to dedicate like hours upon hours for a difficult sugar glider. And another thing that is time consuming is you do have to hand make their food. So you have that, you have the bonding thing, they need enrichment and all of that. They do require some time. So if you're looking for an animal that just takes care of themselves, then you shouldn't get a sugar glider, because the fact is that, I mean, yeah, they probably can be okay, but with no attention, but they're really not going to live their longest life if they're just like that, you know, not really getting a whole bunch of attention. Also, I never recommend having sugar gliders on their own. You definitely need to have a buddy, at least one or more buddies for your sugar glider. And please don't put like male and female together when the male's not neutered, because they can breed quite a bit, despite popular opinion that they don't breed as often or only twice a year. I have proven again and again that that is not always true. My gliders had several joeys in the span of a year, so just something to think about. Another thing that you should look for is that whoever is selling you the glider should be able to provide the out-of-pouch date, and that out-of-pouch date should make the sugar glider joey around 8 to 12 weeks old, and they need to have a fluffy tail with hair on it already. Chances are, if they have a smooth tail that has not furred up, they're way too young to leave. So that's another thing you want to keep your eyes open for. A joey also needs to be sure-footed, so if they look like they're kind of hesitant or shaky and they're just learning how to walk and get around, that's another clear sign or red flag that they're not ready to leave. Something you should be very wary about, and kind of a red flag, is a person that won't show you the glider before you purchase, like not even pictures or anything. Never agree to anything like that, because a good breeder should be able to at least provide you pictures, videos, whatever you ask for if you are indeed interested in purchasing a glider. Another thing is to look for a breeder that will let you handle the joey before you actually bring the joey home, and sometimes before you even purchase. Like whenever I was breeding joeys before I retired my male, I would always tell people, come over, handle my joeys. I would even let them handle the parents so that they could see the difference between handling a joey and handling an adult. I have nothing to hide, and I feel like every breeder should be the same way. If they have nothing to hide, they will let you handle the joey. Another thing you want to be wary of is anyone that promotes gliders being housed in an enclosure with other pets, such as other species that are not their own kind, like guinea pigs, hedgehogs, whatever it may be. I never promote that. It's just too risky, because even if it's a small mammal, like a guinea pig or something, I mean, these sugar gliders are known to eat birds and small rodents and mammals in the wild, so you definitely don't want to risk it. And not only that, I hate it when people promote bonding with cats, because even the most docile and calm cat in the world can still want to play with the sugar glider, and they don't necessarily have to be aggressive or wanting to cause harm, but all it takes is one swipe with their claws and it's game over, because cat saliva is extremely toxic to sugar gliders, and the bacteria in their claws can make the sugar gliders very ill and even kill them, so it's just not worth the risk. You also want to avoid anybody that says gliders don't bite and that they won't potty on you. Now, I know this is kind of controversial about the potty issue, and I know some people say, oh yeah, I trained my sugar glider how to not go potty on me. But in reality, holding them over a piece of toilet paper or whatever right when they wake up is not potty training them, people. I mean, literally every animal, and even us, when we first wake up, we'll gladly go to the bathroom. It's just habit. It doesn't mean we were trained to do that. It's just natural. And sugar gliders can't formally be trained to actually go in a litter box or things like that. Even if you are mainly successful and you figure out the spot they go potty in and you put a litter box there, they're still gonna eventually go potty all over you if you don't let them have a potty break after a while and stuff like that. It's just gonna happen because they are animals. And as for the biting, They definitely can bite because even my sugar gliders are super calm. They allow my 5 and 6-year-old daughters to handle them. But this being said, animals are animals, and sometimes they don't mean to bite you, but they still can bite you. Just thinking your finger is a snack, or if you're holding treats, sometimes I still get nipped, and it doesn't mean that they wanted to bite me or were trying to. It was just an accident. So they do bite, and even accidents happen all the time. So also, you want to avoid anybody who uses physical force on gliders. Now, for bonding and for difficult gliders, sometimes I will cup them in my hand, or I'll tell you guys to get a fleece square blankie and cup them in there. But when I say cup, I'm not meaning like squeeze their guts out. You don't want to squeeze them so hard. You're just basically cupping them just to apply a little bit of pressure, but it's still very comfortable for them. So anybody that uses excessive force and is literally squeezing the sugar gliders, you want to stay away from those people. And I already talked about this, but anybody promoting single sugar gliders, you want to stay away from, because even though some people are going to be like, oh, well, I was successful and my sugar glider is single. Yeah, you can be, but a lot of times you can be blinded and think your sugar glider is happy when in reality they're not. They're just getting by. And really the best way to figure that out is to actually give them a buddy. A lot of times sugar gliders are thought that they're fine and everything, and they don't show signs until the last minute that they're depressed, and at that point it's too late. So you definitely want to get your sugar glider a buddy, even if at first you get them from different places and you have to do the 30-day quarantine. That's fine. I'm not talking about short term, like if you're in the process of getting a buddy, but long term you definitely don't want to have your sugar glider all by themselves. A buddy provides them grooming, communication, and enrichment that we just can't provide as a human being. These are basically things to look for and red flags that should tell you when you shouldn't buy. So you want to make sure that the sugar glider does not have any matted or wet fur. Now there's a difference between some like kind of moist fur in a spot or so because they were being groomed by another glider. You just don't want their entire body to be matted or wet because that many times is a sign of illness. You also want to make sure that they are full of energy. You don't want a lethargic glider. And that basically means that they won't even get up. They're unresponsive if you try to wake them up. There's a difference. Some sugar gliders during the day, they will be a little sleepy, but there's a difference between just being sleepy but still responding to touch and certain things and just plain lethargic to where they're not responding to anything and not wanting to drink or eat. You want to make sure that they don't have a wet tail and poop on their tail. If there's a lot of stuck poop on there, it can be a sign that they can potentially have diarrhea or some kind of illness. So you want to avoid sugar gliders that exhibit those signs. You also want to look at their eyes. You want to make sure that their eyes are not either dull, bluish, or gunky. So just make sure their eyes look healthy. Another thing to look at that not many people think about are their ears. You want to make sure that the ears are not dry or scaly, and you want to make sure the ears don't constantly stay down. They should be alert, and many times when a sugar glider hears sounds and stuff, their ears will instantly perk up if they're a healthy glider because that's natural to them and they're always very curious of sounds. So if their ears are constantly staying down, that's just not a good sign. You also want to make sure they don't have greasy or sticky fur, because if they do, then that's a sign that the owner or the seller is not really cleaning their cages all that well, and they can be living in dirty and filthy conditions. So you just want to look out for that. And you also want to make sure that the glider is not super malnourished. You don't want any ribs showing or anything like that. They can also be very dehydrated, so just keep an eye out for that. And of course, you don't want your sugar glider to be having diarrhea everywhere, because many times that's a sign of serious illness. So these are things I'm going to go into next that make a good breeder. So a lot of people will ask me, what makes a good breeder? Well, a good breeder you can easily distinguish, because a good breeder has enough, they don't cram all sugar gliders in one tiny space. They have adequate housing for them. A good breeder will have a good stable diet for their sugar gliders. A good breeder will allow you to handle the sugar gliders no problem. And a good breeder does not promote any unsafe items, whether it be unsafe wheels, heat rocks, or anything like that. A good breeder has done their research, and they definitely know how to provide the best care for their sugar gliders. And another huge thing is that a good breeder will be more than happy to answer all your questions, no matter how many and no matter how dumb you may think as the customer that they are. A good breeder will always be more than happy to help, not only with the sale, but during the lifetime of that sugar glider. I have a lot of sugar glider Joeys to where I still keep in touch with the buyer. It's just something that I provide as a breeder, lifetime support. So anytime they're having an issue, they can be like, hey, I'm having a behavioral issue, or my sugar gliders don't like the current diet they're on, or how do I do this and how do I do that? And since I'm a good breeder, I don't hide my information. I love educating people, and every breeder should be the same way. But unfortunately, there's a lot of bad breeders out there. So that pretty much covers our topic for Tuesday's animal topic of the day. Again, if you guys enjoyed the video, go ahead and subscribe and click on the bell so you don't miss any more videos. And if you have any suggestions on topics you would love me to talk about, go ahead and put them down in the comments section. Another thing is I will be doing product reviews pretty soon, coming up on no particular day, but just whenever I get things in the mail. If you guys would like me to review a certain product that you've been wondering about, please put it down in the comments below as well, so that I can go ahead and get it ordered and eventually present my product review on that. Well, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support, and you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.